This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 215, recorded on May 21st, 2015. Here at Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets I find in your home. News, reviews, products, updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a sunny and beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. And, of course, we post the show with world-class show notes each week out at the AverageGuy.tv. If you have questions, comments, or contributions, you might want to use our email address. You can send it to me, Jim at the AverageGuy.tv. Nobody ever does. I don't even know why I say that anymore. You guys, nah, that's not true. You guys do send emails there. You can find me on Twitter at jcollison, or you can now call in those questions. And Neil always calls in. You guys, somebody else, Neil, I love you that you call in. Right, I love that. Don't get me wrong, but I'd love to hear from a few other people as well. 402, stop the car, get that pen out that you in the glove box. It's right over there to the right. Get that pen out. 402, write this on your hand. 402-478-8450, and leave us a message. Although Mike and I were listening to messages tonight because we're going to start the show with some messages, and not all of them are the greatest quality. So it might be a little bit better if you recorded those on your phone and then emailed them to me. Use that Jim at the AverageGuy.tv. That might work better. I couldn't use a few of them because they were so bad. So Neil, including some of yours. So we're going to play one short clip, but they were cutting out a lot and just not good enough for the show. But give me a call, 402-478-8450. And we'll use those. And tonight is a good night to do that because I'll tell you here in just a second. The AverageGuy.tv is powered by Maple Grove Partners Web Hosting. Of course, get safe, secure, reliable, high-speed. Christian's always making updates to that thing. He just sent me a note today, and he was like, hey, Jim, I noticed some weird things were going on, and I took care of it. And I think that means people died in foreign countries. I'm not going to lie about that. I think, whoop, whoop, that was out. They were messing with Christian, and whoop, they were gone. And so, no, not really. I'm just kidding. But you can get that from Christian. Head over to maplegrovepartners.com, and we'd love to have you. He's got room for a couple more over there if you want to get some great web hosting. We've been normally live streaming out to WLMN Radio. Tonight, with the hour change, we're not doing that, but we want to thank Roger for hosting us out there as we drop the video files. If you are from Grafton, love to hear from you. Grafton is I think the founding place of Mother's Day. And so
is it really?
I think it is. Yeah, I think that's real.
Learn something new every day.
There you go, Grafton, West Virginia. I want to welcome you to Home Gadget Geeks. And, of course, Home Gadget Geeks is the part of the Geeks Network. Find the link to this show and many other great podcasts. Although if you're listening to the show, you probably don't need the link to it. But out at thegeeksnetwork.com. Mike, I've been surprised. I thought those pages don't work. Dave and I did that network page, and we were like, I was like, I don't think they really work. I'm getting a surprising number of hits from that page through my Google Analytics. Yeah, we got to get your album art.
Yeah, I know. My sister is now all done with graduation. Her AP test was today, so I'm like, all right, I might send her a text tomorrow and see. Yeah. She has it done, I think. She's like, oh no, so the thing is, a side note, I guess we have time.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Oh yeah.
My old high school that I went to, that she now goes to, every student gets a laptop for all 4 years. You get the same laptop, but you have to turn it in on your last day of finals. So you turn your laptop in for the summer. You don't get to keep it. And all of a sudden, her eyes lit up when I asked her about it. She goes, I don't know if I got it off my school laptop. I was like, oh. So that was a moment of panic for her. And she was in Omaha. She was not in Kansas City. She goes, I'll check when I get down there. I backed everything up, I think, but I don't know if I got that off my school laptop.
Shoot. Well, yeah. All we're waiting on is that album art. We're going to add you over there at the Geeks Network.
No, that sounds great.
Mike, I didn't introduce you, but Mike Weger. If you are interested in an Apple-focused podcast, Mike does those Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, out at omnpodcast.com. And Mike, welcome to Home Gadget Geeks.
Thanks. Good to be back. I was out last week, but you guys, I listened to the show. Fantastic Windows news for me. It's always good for me to be able to catch up on that sort of stuff. But glad to be back this week, and it'll be a good show.
Yeah, when you have Rich Hay on the podcast, it's like a 55-gallon drum of Windows goodness that you just drink right from the drum. Just
right. And I've got a very small hole for my Windows news it has to filter through. So it was like, yeah, there was a bottleneck there.
It was splashing out all over the place, and Rich did a great job, and he is just a wealth of information. I'm going to work on getting Rich back at least twice a year, maybe 3 times, anytime there's big. We'll probably have him back late summer as Windows 10 goes live. He's just in the know. He's over there at Win Supersite, and he's a good guy to have on. Well, tonight we're going to do some community stuff. I had Addie scheduled to come in. She was going to talk about WordPress stuff, and she had a family issue here at the last minute. And honestly, I did too. I had to move this podcast out to 9 o'clock, so if you join us live, normally at 8, 9 o'clock tonight. Big graduation weekend. My senior's graduating, and I actually have two seniors. I have a college senior and a high school senior, and they're both graduating this weekend. Actually, the senior in high school graduates Saturday morning. The college kid's done at this point. We're just going to party like it's 1999. And so it's graduation weekend. My mom's in town. We're having a good time. And so with Addie dropping out, Mike and I got some tech news. I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share some of the voicemails that you've been calling in with. Neil, I mentioned him up front. Neil is my most faithful caller. If we had a badge for most call-ins to the show, Neil would definitely get that badge. Last week we were talking about Windows Media Center, and we were talking about the guide data that comes with it, and we talked about that site ismediacenterdeadyet.com, and you can check that to see if the guide data is in. And so Neil has a quick little clip about the guide data. Have a listen to this.
Hey, it's that Neil guy, part 2. Is Windows Media Center dead yet? One would hope that people who paid extra to put Media Center on their 8.1 box would continue to get guide data through the life of 8.1.
Yeah, so Neil makes a really good point that Mike, back in the day when we went from Windows 7, which came with Media Center for free, and we went to Windows 8, they ripped Media Center out, and they said, but if you pay $10 or $20, something like that, you can get this Pro Pack that will allow you to put Media Center back on. And it was pretty inexpensive, and a lot of guys bought it and allowed you to have Media Center on 8.1. Neil's point is, because the point we were making is we don't know when they're going to kill the guide data for Windows Media Center. They're not even, they're not developing it anymore. They've officially killed it. What would kill Media Center is if they took the guide data out, right? All somebody would have to do is, flip the switch off. Media Center would then really be dead at that point. And Neil makes a good point that aren't they obligated, Microsoft, that people spot these media packs as, this was last year, or late last year, or early the year before. Let's see, we're in 2015, 13. It was 14. People were buying these things, Mike. I mean, wouldn't you have an expectation if we paid for those? Microsoft has some obligation to keep that guide data going for some length of time, longer than a year, obviously, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I would think so. Could you leave your server on 8.1 and you'd be fine for as long as you kept it there?
No, the guide data is separate. So the guide data is what it pings every 2 weeks and says what's new, right? What's new, and it downloads that, right? That's a service that Microsoft buys that actually I think is going to get incorporated into Xbox One that you have, and I think DVR capability is going to come to Xbox One. And so I don't think the guide data is ever going to stop. I'll just be honest with you. I think that's an API that's probably going to be available for a while. But Neil makes a great point. So Neil, I think you're right. When we think about guide data in that, now, could they shut it off? Absolutely, if that's what they want to do. But I do think as an MVP for Windows, I do think there is an obligation for Microsoft, since you guys just bought that, or there were people who bought those media packs for Windows 8. I think they got some obligation. So
this reminds me of like when Apple kind of really dumbed down their Final Cut software. So people paid $300 for the upgrade to Final Cut, which was Final Cut 10, and they had cut out a ton of the Pro features. And so it's one of those things of, do you owe something to your customers that just paid for this, and to keep it the same, to keep it like you had it before? So yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah,
obviously, big companies have to deal with it at some point.
Yeah, no, and that's one of those things when you start supporting, you can't just stop.
Right.
And one of those things. Lots of room in chat out there. There is a HD home run. Those guys over at Silicon Dust are doing a Kickstarter project. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'll try to leave the link for that in the show notes. A Kickstarter project to do their own DVR or their own media center that you would load on Windows, and it would have all that richness of media center. So last time I checked, they weren't quite to their goal. Maybe somebody in the chat room can drop a link for me in chat, just so I don't have to go look that up while we're talking. So that's one thing that's encouraging. I mentioned it too, Mike. You're an Xbox One user. Yep. Have you used? Well, you probably don't have a TV tuner to even use it with. You haven't I don't think that functionality is working for you yet. Is it? Have you tried it? No.
To bring in a tuner onto the Xbox.
Yeah.
They just announced it, so you can get the tuner and you can plug it in. I just plug in my cable box to my Xbox, which works pretty well.
Okay.
That's what I use as my. It's actually, well, I don't want to show it, but I have the hockey game going on over here. It's running through my Xbox into my cable box. It's a good way to run it. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
One simple HDMI.
But no DVR yet, and it's coming.
No DVR. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
that's a
you're going to get
conversation
it.
we had. Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. That is. I could see that coming, especially when you were telling me about, Windows 10 coming to the Xbox and everything like that, which I was excited about. I wonder if some of that functionality is coming. And with the TV tuner, that's kind of a positive inkling that we might actually get that.
Yeah. No, right on. I think it's coming. Rennie said, it's finished, Jim. If he would have been a Star Trek fan, he would have said, it's dead, Jim. That's what he would have said if he was a Star Trek fan. So, Rennie, nice try. Try that again. But you want to Media Center in its current form is dead, right? Out. It will be reborn on the Xbox One. So that's the direction Microsoft is going with Media Center. So I think the days when we run these things on our PC are getting pretty short. You had dropped a link in there to the Home Run Kickstarter. They've raised $370,000 as of this date. So it's not bad.
4,000 backers.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
That's not bad. Yeah, it is, but not when you have 1 billion PCs.
Right.
That's what Microsoft looks at. Is like, okay, 4,000 people willing to pay for it. That's nothing in the Microsoft ecosystem to them, right? $300,000 is nothing, right? That's what they pay every second for their heating bill on the Redmond campus. It's just so. It's not. There's not enough users now. I think with Xbox One, I think we've got a real run at this. I think it's coming, and they've got a real run at it.
It would make sense with the whole focus they had on the Xbox One when it was announced was being your home entertainment center console. That's what it's really intended to be. That's why they have such the heavy integration of the TV and all that stuff. I think that's what it was intended to be. So yeah, the DVR makes sense. Yeah. I would love it because I don't have DVR service, so.
Right.
I'd absolutely love it.
Yeah. No. I. You know what? It's a showstopper at our house. We have a Windows 7 box that Sarah uses to record The Voice and Idol and all the Dancing with the Stars and Fallon. She's got she records so many things. She has to delete them within a couple weeks, otherwise they start dropping off. Because the hard drive, I don't know, I probably have a 500 gig hard drive or something on there, and she fills that thing up. So it's one of those things that's a no for us. There's no option. I can't take the DVR away from her. So I'm going TiVo. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to rent one from Cox if that's what I was going to do. If I had to move away from Windows 7, I don't at this point. The guide data works. She's like, just leave it. It just works. I'm okay with it. So for now, that'll always just be a Windows 7 box. And we have talked about putting that on a different. There's some really good new hardware out there that's small, way more powerful than that Core 2 Duo that I have out there right now running that. And I could throw some SSD at it, although that's not the best use. Recording TV is not the best use of SSD, but maybe put SSD for the OS drive and throw a 4 terabyte spinner in there for her recording drive, and she'd be done. So.
See, the question I have, though, is DVR even necessary anymore? At least for all of me and my friends, not a single one have DVR because we all have Hulu Plus and Netflix. And for us, if it's not on those two, or if it's not on something where you can sign in and watch, then we don't really need it. And almost all of us, like I said, I've told the people before that my cable is paid for, but none of my other friends have cable. So I'm wondering if for this next generation coming up, is DVR kind of a thing of the past? I even think of my sister at home. She lives in a home with DVR and does not DVR things.
I don't think DVR is something you do as you get older, right? I think it's one of those kinds of things where the kids don't care about it, but I think as they get older, then it's like, whoa, I don't want to miss this live TV stuff. Now, she also uses Netflix and she also uses Prime, but there's live TV stuff like Dancing with the Stars, not on Netflix.
It's on Hulu though, isn't it?
We don't have Hulu, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? It's right. Not. That's where and I don't know if some of those shows, and I'd have to go back and look, but some of those live ones She wants to watch them an hour after they aired. Right? It's not convenient for her to watch at 8. She wants to
Which
watch
you
it at 9.
can't get on the streaming services.
Right.
Right.
See, this is where the DVR kicks every time.
Well, and I think if Microsoft does it on the Xbox One, that could be almost the reincarnation release for DVR for the people who, when you think of the normal person, no one's going to build a Windows Media Server, the normal run-of-the-mill person, to DVR stuff. I don't think so. And so I think if you had on the Xbox One, though, something people have already in their living room, their kids got one, their husband's got one, their daughter, whatever, they have one in the house for some reason. Like, oh, that thing can DVR too? Well, okay, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I think the traditional DVRs that people use all the time are the ones from the cable companies, which almost cost more. I mean, the amount you rent those from per month.
It's really dumb.
Like, you're paying for double Hulu, first of all. So you could grab Hulu and one other service for the amount you're paying for.
Yeah.
To rent those.
No, that's robbery. They're just robbing you. Yeah. Drashna had said, Jim, install StableBit Drive Pool, which I own a copy of, and pool my recorded TV. I absolutely could do that. I could just throw another disc on that DVR out there, put Drive Pool on there, and run them. I own a copy. It's actually sitting on my Windows server right now. That's turned off because I spilled water off. When I ruined the soundboard, we'll talk about that here in a second. When I spilled water on the soundboard, it went right down into the server.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't had the guts to turn that thing on yet to see if I ruined it. So that was a disaster. We'll talk about that maybe at the end of the show. So lots of good comments out there from you guys about this. I know this is a hot topic, and I know everybody does it a little bit different, and I totally agree with you. DVR capability is too hard for most people. It's got to be built into a system they can buy, and it just needs to work. Today, that's still not working. I think the Xbox One is the best shot at it for a lot of people, for the average consumer. And so I think that's the state of things for sure.
Yeah, it's working. It's just expensive if you want it. I mean,
yeah, no, true.
It's extremely easy. You just get the box. My grandparents have DVR and everything like that, but it's expensive. You got to be willing to pay for it.
Yeah, let's shift gears a little bit. Ted had a call in. Ted from Chicago had this call in. I think I played these at the end of the show the other night, so you might have repeated. But I wanted to play this where it got recorded into the program. And so Ted has this interesting problem about porting numbers, which I find fascinating. So if you've ever tried to port a number, your phone number, from one service to another, this is pretty interesting. Listen to Ted.
Hi, Jim. This is Ted from Chicago. I just have a couple of little comments about VoIP and home phone service. My wife and I, we had VoIP at our house through Vonage. A couple of years ago, when my wife and I each got new smartphones, we decided that it was time to drop having the home phone number, which we never used. So what I did was I created an additional mailbox on my Google Apps account for my personal domain. I ported the Vonage number over to Google Voice, which was actually a two-step process, and this is the interesting part. Google Voice only allows porting of phone numbers from specific carriers, so and AT&T landlines, and Vonage was not on the list. So I had to port the number over to a T-Mobile pay-as-you-go phone. After one day, I then ported it from T-Mobile over to Google Voice. There was a one-time fee. I think it was $20, but now I have free forwarding of my my old Vonage phone number, which my wife and I wanted to keep that number, and it forwards all calls to my wife's smartphone. So it works perfectly for us. That's all. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. So an interesting problem where the carriers, porting is still kind of a crazy deal to move, and so it didn't support moving from off of the AT&T landline, so they had to go to T-Mobile for a day, and then you could move from T-Mobile to Google Voice. So Ted, thanks for that call. It's an interesting solution. So you had to go buy a burner phone, get a number, do the port, have it get activated, then take that number, drop it to Google Voice. Now then forward that number to his wife's phone. So it's, Mike, we got to get rid of that. I mean, that whole old school system of phone numbers, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, somewhere there is a stash of really nice burner phones because everyone uses them for something, one purpose, and then they kind of toss them aside or throw them in a thing, but they're not worth anything. But somewhere there's just a stash of those. But yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
But Google Voice is, again, one of those really versatile services that I don't think people fully utilize. I've definitely considered grabbing one for, once my wife and I have kids, I'm thinking grabbing one to give a number to the school that they can call. It'll ring both cell phones. So that sort of stuff. I mean, it's a really, really nice service. Right now, I just use it as kind of my business line number. But beyond that, just like he said, I mean, with all the porting and stuff like that, it's perfect.
Yeah, that's what we use to just play these voice numbers. And
right.
So if you wanna call those in, again, work with me on this so we get good quality. Neil, like I said, a couple of your calls you're really cutting out, and I can't play them. So call those in 402-478-8450, and those will come right into me. Leave a voicemail. And a great way to do it. One reminder, we are coming up with the Home Server Show meetup. I was going to mention this in the beginning, but I jumped right into voicemail. September 12th, Mike and I are both heading to Indianapolis to hang out with Dave McCabe for the Home Server Show, Surface Geeks, AverageGuy.tv meetup. And if you haven't gotten involved in that, there'll be a link in the show notes over to that. $25 deposit reserves your space. The rooms are going to go fast, $89 a night if you're staying in a room. Up there, you can share rooms with guys if you want to do that to kind of keep the price down. That makes it $89 for the weekend. And so all those things are coming up. Check out the link in the show notes. Head out, and if you have any questions, let me know. But we would like to start getting people signed up for it. Summer will be gone before you know it, and we're just trying to get a number of how many people will be out there. You know, it's a great time. Dinner and beer on Friday night, you can't beat that, right, in the hotel. And then we'll go, we'll do tech all day on Saturday. We'll head over to Fry's for some shopping. They're always good enough to give us a little bit of cash when we do that. We'll head out to the Microsoft store. They give us some swag out at the Microsoft store. And then Waffle House. Mike, are you a Waffle House fan?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a lacrosse team tradition.
Yeah, Waffle House Saturday or Sunday morning has become our tradition. We kind of take the place over, and it's just dynamite. So hit the show link or the show notes for that, and we'll go over there. Mike, Spotify, some changes are coming to Spotify. Not only they're going to start supporting more podcasting, although that's going to look like they're going after the big name podcasters in Spotify. So it's not like us, who we can submit our shows to Spotify at this point. Right. That may be coming for right now. More of the big podcasters, but what else are you seeing coming with Spotify?
The main thing I like, so you're right. They're kind of going for the big name on podcasts, but from what I saw, and if you correct me if you saw something different, but what I saw was they're teaming up with Libsyn, right? So Libsyn, if you host through Libsyn, that's the only way that you're going to be able to even kind of get into that whole Spotify podcast area. Okay. So it's not even really you can't submit your feed. It's nothing going to be like that. It's not going to be like a TuneIn Radio or anything. It's going to be an exclusive partnership, I believe, with Libsyn. Now, that's kind of what Ray Ortega was coming out with. He did a few things right as it's kind of released, and he had met with them at New Media Expo. And so that's kind of the maybe underground word is kind of that they're teaming up with Libsyn. But beyond that, so it might not be a big podcast thing for all of us, but pretty much as an overall view of this whole Spotify change is that they're trying to be the app that you don't leave. So they're adding video, they're adding podcasts, and they're adding a lot of features for runners. Mainly, they're going to start using those gyroscopes that are in all of our phones, and they have this certain music that will actually adjust the tempo. It'll adjust kind of the whole composition of the song based on how fast or slow you're running. So a lot of really cool features there. But yeah, kind of like I said, overall, they kind of want you to stay there. So they're teaming up with a lot of news sources. You got CNN, you got NBC, a lot of those for little small video clips. So pretty much Spotify's like, well, if we don't want them to leave, let's add in the podcast because that's another app they go to. We've got their music. Let's add in some small news video chunks and keep them in our app as long as possible. Seems to be kind of the trend, obviously, for Spotify right now.
Are you a Spotify guy right now?
I am. Love it. I use it all the time. It's my main source of music, except for if I'm just kind of wanting something random, I'll power up Pandora. But for the most part, I pay for Spotify Premium. My wife and I both use it and really, really enjoy it. So,
and how much is that a month?
I believe about $10. It's kind of expensive.
Okay.
Yeah, but worth it for us because we have all of our unlimited music. You can have it downloaded to your phone for when you're traveling, anything like that. All of our playlists sync across all of our devices. Really nice.
Looks like right now, if you want to try them, 3 months of premium, 99 cents. So it may not be a bad option if you wanted to try Spotify and get their premium. I actually like it better than free. Where it's like, hey, free premium. I like the buy-in deal where it's
Right.
like, well, at least there's a little value to it. So no ads, play on demand and offline content right through Spotify.
Right, because for the free version, you can have everything in a playlist. You can make playlists of all the songs you want, but it shuffles it. You can't select which song you want. With the premium, it's kind of just like a free iTunes is the way I describe it. You can add any song to any playlist you want, download them to your phone. You don't get access to obviously the MP3 file or anything like that, but to your phone and to the app, you can download them. So.
And of course, free version is ad supported, and you can skip 6 times per hour on mobile, which is kind of key if you don't like this. That's to compete with Pandora. Right?
Exactly, but it's a more tailored Pandora. You can actually select the songs you want in your podcast or in your playlist, and then it goes from there. So whereas Pandora's just kind of pick your station and go, Spotify for free, you can add in the songs you want.
So you mentioned on-demand, mobile, listen offline.
Yep.
If you want to do that, no connection. Ad-free, unlimited skips, better sound quality, and you can play Spotify in your home speakers. Well, you can kind of do that anyways if you have the right equipment.
Right.
But so have you heard when we're going to start getting some of this podcast support, or was it just kind of like, hey, we're going to do this, but we don't know a date?
The second one. Yeah, I think they're trying to get the word out there. They're trying to kind of wait and say, hey, this is all coming, don't worry. That whole podcast part was kind of part of their video announcement as well. So I think the runner stuff we'll see earlier. The stuff with the video clips is what we're going to see a little bit later with Spotify. But like I said, some relative changes. I mean, adding video to Spotify, first of all, I never thought we would see that. That surprises me more than podcasts. But I will be very interested to see how the whole podcast integration goes, because like you said, I think they are going after the big players. And if they are teaming up with Libsyn, I don't think you host through Libsyn, do you? Because I know, no. Yeah, and I don't either. So I'm, it's gonna be a little difficult for us who do not, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I need it. I don't know if I need to be on Spotify. My listeners today have found ways to find me, and I'm not sure hanging out with my friends Leo Laporte and that group. I mean, Twit was right in the middle of that whole announcement that they made.
Yeah.
I don't know if me competing in that space is particularly to my advantage, right? From that standpoint, they got big budgets. They do it for different reasons. I'm about community. They're about numbers. And they're about community too. Don't get me wrong. They love doing what they do over there at Twit. But it's just I have a different audience. My goal is to reach my audience kind of one person at a time, find people who like the content that we do here. I get plenty of positive comments from you guys. So you send me emails, hey, I appreciate it. Neil sends me a call every week. Hey, Jim, love the podcast. For me, that's good enough. But I get it. I mean, I think from a podcast, exposure angle, I think it's great. I think as podcasters, Mike, we need to be careful what we wish for, right? We want more and more exposure, but as more exposure comes, money comes. As more money comes, people get squeezed out. Right. And then the small guy loses. Now, the beauty of the internet in this case with podcasters is as small guys, we can still do this. We're not it's not like the days of radio where you needed to have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of radio equipment to broadcast your signal or get an FCC license or have on-air talent, right? We can do this 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 nights a week and do it on our own time and produce this great or good, let me say, this good quality stuff that, if there's 10 of us, there's 10 guys out in the chat room. They're obviously there. They're there every week. We're making a connection. So I don't know. As you think about your podcast and do you think you get on Spotify and that changes anything?
Well, for me, it's not really a thing of exposure. It's being where the people are. And when you think about iTunes did not start out as podcasts. iTunes was the place that you stored your music. And when they added podcast, it became the number one podcast directory. Now, while I don't think Spotify is going to be the number one podcast directory, I think of it as, oh, yeah, I have Spotify. Oh, hey, there's podcasts here? Well, I might try a podcast out. It's where they already are. It's how they already use their music. And so I think it might actually bring not even to one specific podcast, like not to our podcast, but I think it might bring more people over into podcasts, more people that see, hey, I don't have to download this new app. I don't have to go switch everything over. I don't have to do anything. It's just built into where I'm already at. And I think that's the reason that you and I mean, I just added myself to TuneIn. I'm on Spreaker, Stitcher. I'm everywhere just to be where people are at. And yes, that at the same time it is exposure because the people that are on those platforms might find me. But really, for me, it's making it as easy as possible for the people to find my show. So for me, I think this whole Spotify thing is because Spotify has the clout behind it. I don't know where they rank in music players or how people get their music, but I have to say it has to be at least top 4. When you think about it, I think of iTunes, I think of Spotify, Pandora, maybe Songza, Google, and Amazon. That are kind of the people I think of when I do music. So, yeah, I just think of it as another place where podcasts are going to be located, bringing more exposure to podcasts and being where those people are at.
Yeah,
so that's what it is for me.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
On that, playing a little devil's advocate from that standpoint, we always it's kind of the next newest thing out there, and the shiny object. And when Stitcher got purchased by Deezer, there were there's big promises. At the same time, you're right. I do everything I can to get my podcast everywhere so that you can listen as the listener, you can listen to it everywhere, right? That's why we stream on Mixlr and on Spreaker at the same time and through YouTube. So you're right. No, I agree with you totally. So does the chat room. John says he agrees with you on this one. So
and this isn't a thing where we need to, be all, thank you Spotify for giving us anything either. And I think Ray Ortega was kind of talking about this, and because honestly, podcasts are free. They're not going to have to pay us anything, and they're going to run ads against our content. So for a lot of these services, you got to think that podcasts are free to get. A lot of us submit our feed, and then a lot of them are benefiting from us submitting our free content. So it's not like Spotify is giving up anything or this is costing them absolutely anything. They're making money on all of this partnership with podcasts. So they'd actually be smart to let in more podcasts than to make these exclusive deals. But yeah, so I mean, they're not losing anything.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I do. One of the things that I'm concerned about is I still think it's still too hard to listen to a podcast. There's still hoops to jump through. It's getting easier, and there's some, iTunes is easy. If I grab somebody's iPhone, I can show them in just a second how to find Home Gadget Geeks, how to find Open Mic Night. That's pretty easy, right, from that standpoint. Android's a completely different story, and so we now have Subscribe on Android, which is a kind of a service Blueberry is working with that helps you click on a link, and that goes to a web page that says, hey, here's some great podcatchers on Android. But, I have this equation, options equal confusion, right? So the more options you give people, the more confused they're going to be from that standpoint. So Android's, because of the openness of it, has tons of options, and some good ones. Dogcatcher, Beyond Pod, Pocket Casts, all those are dynamite podcatchers. But the average consumer's like, oh, I got to download this, and then I got to buy it. Oh, and then there's all these options where on iTunes it just kind of works. So I think we got a ways to go on Android to really help people listen to podcasts. It's I think about that every weekend when I'm posting the podcast. It's like, yeah, how do I make this easier?
I think we worry more, though, because we are podcasters. We worry about our listeners not being able to find us or new people being able to listen to us. But I've been very surprised, and it's been recent within the last 6 months, of how many friends have posted on Facebook, hey, guys, looking for podcast suggestions, going on a 6-hour road trip. And even to see that post on Facebook just kind of shocks me still, like, oh, people are out there actually looking for podcasts. That means they know how to download them. They want them. So I think we worry a little bit more than the average person does. But I agree with you. On Android, it is a little bit more difficult, but that's why I think these things like Spotify, which people might already have on their phone, a lot of people will already have Spotify, and it's going to be there. Oh, it's just an extra tab I click on. So the more places like that add it in, the happier I am.
That's a good point. As long as they make it easy for us to find my podcast.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And you know what? You might be right in the sense that I may worry about it more than the
I do too.
Person, It's like I was talking to a good friend at work, and I'm like, hey, have you ever listened to my podcast? She's like, no. I'm like, give me your phone. And it was Android, and then I'm like, oh, crap.
Shoot,
what's the right? So you have to ask them a few questions, like, well, what do you use any kind of streaming service? Have you ever heard of Stitcher? Have you? No. And I'm like, well, and I think with her, we downloaded the free version of BeyondPod, and I set up. And then once you're in BeyondPod, super easy. It says plus add podcast. Click on that, then put in Home Gadget Geeks. Boom, you're in, and it's subscribed. And so that is fairly easy once you get that. But getting them, they're not going to think, oh yeah, BeyondPod, that's what I'm going to use on Android. I mean, the average Android user isn't going to know. You're going to say, well, find a podcatcher that you like. Well, then it dies at that point. They never go back and do anything. So it would be good if we could get a little bit better or a little bit cleaner, or one that would rise to the top. Or in this case, I think you're right. Spotify starts doing this and they make that discovery easy. I think it works well. Speaking of discovery, I have been doing a ton on Clamor lately with that. This week, you might have seen if you've been on Clamor at all, and I've actually been finding a ton of comedy on Clamor, which has been, I mentioned that a couple podcasts ago, not safe for work. Do not go to the comedy channel on Clamor and play that out loud at work. Okay? I'm just telling you, every other one is filthy, right? But I found some pretty good clean comedy on there that I like. You just swipe through them. But this week, Mike, I made 7 18-second clips and loaded one per day, and I got way more engagement on Clamor this year or this week than I've ever gotten in the past. So it seemed like kind of the daily 18-second clip. And I know most of my listeners, if you're listening to me now, you're probably not on Clamor. CLAMMR is what we're talking about if you go to clamor.com. Little audio, quickly go through 18-second clips. You were going to say something?
Well, that's where I was. I was actually shocked at the amount of engagement I was already getting on Clamor. So I have one Clamor out there. Posted my first one with last week's podcast. Did it 2 days ago. But actually, they just sent me a message saying they're going to feature my podcast on the new podcast or whatever. So that's nice. So maybe that was where all the likes started coming in and the follows. But I mean, I was surprised how many people were there already on Clamor.
Well, I think it's weird because I get all these likes, and I'm like, who are these people?
Right.
Where did they come from? And I guess they're us listening to these. What I'll do in the car is I'll put that thing on, and it's just 18-second clips until I hear something that I like, and then I hit, and then I'm like, I want to hear more, and it flips over and it plays the full content, which is great if you're searching for new whatever you want to do. And I think this is a great service. If you haven't tried it yet, I think it's iPhone only at the moment. I don't think they have an Android app yet, but CLAMMR. Give that a try. I'd like your feedback on it. This might be a nice one to call back in. Give it a try. It's a different kind of service. I mean, it's like listening to podcasts in 18-second clips.
And it's a 1.0 release. Very 1.0. I mean, there's a lot of things that they need to work out. But, great new kind of idea. It's not a new idea, but a new spin on things. Especially, I like how they have the 18 seconds, and then you can say, here's the full thing. And you switch over to it, and it starts playing right away through the Clamor app. It's kind of nice. Different.
Yeah, we're gonna have an engineer from Clamor on the show here next week. So
next Thursday.
I didn't even think about that. I just promoted that whole show next week. So if you want to come back, they're doing some interesting things. I like to interview these tech guys that are starting new companies. We did that with Bitlit and some of those other ones that we've done. MediaFire was one of those that we've done, although they're not a small startup, but we still like to do those kinds of things. So check out Clamor ahead of next week's show, CLAMMR, and get that on your iPhone. I don't think it's on Android yet, so sorry about that on the Android side. All right. Mike, you had mentioned Brillo, an operating system for the Internet of Things from our friends over at Google.
Yeah, this is something that we will probably hear more about at Google I/O coming up here, but what Brillo is, it's kind of a small version of Android, and they're going to kind of use it as an operating system for your Internet of Things. So think of all the small little internet-connected devices that you have in your home now or that you want that are out on the market. A lot of those require an operating system, and Google wants Brillo to be kind of the universal operating system. The thing that's on them all, the thing that can connect, the thing that makes your Nest connect to your Philips Hue lights, that connects to your garage door and all of that. They want it all to run Brillo. It's really made to run on a 32 to 64 megabyte RAM. So a lot of these things don't have a lot of RAM, so that's what it's meant to be run on. So kind of nice. A lighter version of Android is really what it is, a kind of a dumbed-down version. But an interesting idea, Google kind of saying, hey, we want to be the first one here to this market that says, if you want to build a smart device, we can give you a free operating system to put on. And then Google's got the entire back end to our entire home-connected system. So an interesting play by Google. I'll be interested to hear more of the details. Right now, there's not many details out, a lot of rumors, but I'm sure at Google I/O we'll hear a lot more.
Christian, who joined us late, says, "Oh, perfect! Google having a universal backdoor into the Internet of Things."
I was wondering if Christian was out here. I'm like, Christian would be a perfect person to ask about this.
Yeah, he might be. Christian's going to be on in a couple weeks too. He's going to give us a breakdown on Maple Grove Partners, the whole infrastructure there. It's been a while, and so we're having him back on the show. It's summertime for Christian.
We're both on Maple Grove too.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be a great show to kind of catch up with Christian, and he's going to give a total breakdown of all the things he's doing. It'll be a total nerd show. I'm not going to lie.
Love it.
That's going to get nerdy in a hurry. Microsoft's going the same route, Mike, with Windows 10. So they have an Internet of Things version of Windows 10 coming that's completely stripped down to the core, and you put that on a little SSD drive, and you can load that into the Raspberry Pi 2 at this point, fire it up, and then it just presents something to connect to. So then you can do what you do. I don't know what to do with those things, but those people who do,
right?
Know how to get to that. And so there's kind of a race to get smaller on this, right? Our OSs have gotten big and bloated, and yet the Internet of Things is bringing a race now to get the kernels smaller, more efficient, running on smaller and smaller things as we embed those things in our fridge and our ovens and our dishwashers and our talking cylinders.
Well, and there's this company out there whose only big tech news in the last year has been a watch, but their HomeKit is actually rumored to be delayed from, it was supposed to be a May-June release, meaning this month or next month, delayed till September because the software was too big, and a lot of these smart things were the battery was draining in seconds because of all the code that was having to run. So looking like that's going to be delayed as well. So it's not an easy task. I mean, this is definitely not something that's easy to do, is to take an operating system that'll connect to our big systems and dumb them down enough for a light bulb to run off. I mean, you're thinking about something as easy as a light bulb. It's not as easy as you would think. So yeah. All the companies are trying to get into that space. I think Brillo might be a good option, though.
Something to keep your eye on for sure, and on our friends at the University of Maryland there, Christian and Colin and Ashton might have something to say about that. Our three Gallup interns for the summer. And actually, Ashton and Colin are, well, not yet. I picked up Colin from the airport today, so he's here. Ashton flies in tomorrow morning, so I have 2 of 3 on campus for the summer. Christian's staying in Maryland, the area, the vicinity, to do what he does. So summer has kicked in. The interns are at Gallup, and all things fun. I've been thinking about, I'm not going to lie, I've been thinking about picking up 2 of the new Raspberry Pis and bringing them in to work just for these guys, and we might have these sessions where, maybe from 4 to 5 every day we come in there and just hack on these things. That would be kind of fun to,
Got one sitting here that I'm not playing with, so if you want.
Yeah, is it 2? Is it the second version of it?
Yeah.
Has it got Wi-Fi?
No.
So we'd have to add little.
3?
I don't know if 2 has it, but if it doesn't, that's what
I know. The very first one had like 1 USB, and it didn't have HDMI. I don't think so. Mine has HDMI and 2 USBs, a network. So.
I'll have to look it up, but it'd be fun to do some stuff.
I think I'm gonna come over there and hang out on my lunch break. I think that's what this has come down to.
This would be a good. We've been contemplating having this what we're going to call the Summer of Python too, which is learning, getting together, and just because I'd love to learn Python this summer. That'd be one of the things I'd love to do. So when we get all the guys on campus, probably next week, we'll get together and say, all right, let's put a plan together, and over the next 8 weeks, let's learn some Python over the summer. So that'll be pretty cool. So Brian says still need the Wi-Fi over USB, so I have to get a little connection for that. It is John says you got to trust the Google. No, I wouldn't trust the Goog on that, what Christian said. And then Lopta asked me, Jim, did you ever figure out the mailing list subscription problem that I was having, where I got spammed? Never did. And those addresses are not any good. I've mailed 2 newsletters out now, and I'll have a 3rd coming out here at the end of this month when we think about the Average Guy newsletter. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to that, head over to theaverageguy.tv/newsletter. You can read the last 4 versions of them, plus you can subscribe at the same time. That has totally trickled off, and now I'm getting one a week or so, which is normal. But I got like 200 in there that are just junk, Mike. So I don't know. I guess I could go through but it doesn't matter. I'm sending them email. It's not like it's costing me anything. So
It's just kind of sad on your stats when you have to look at them every
it
week.
does.
Like, oh, man.
You're right. It does mess with my stats.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Because
stats.
I contemplated, I don't know, and people kind of question this when I've told people this, but when I made my mailing list for Open Mic Night, I had all of my people who I've helped out through Uyghur Tech, and this is, Uyghur Tech thing, so I had a list of 88 people through my email that I had helped out strictly to my Mike at Uyghur Tech email address, and that we've gone back and forth and emails on. So I added them all to the list. I said, I don't know how many of them are listeners, how many of them aren't, but I added them all to the list, and it did bring down my stats a little bit, but it's grown each week. So I'm wondering if more and more of those are kind of like opening up. Oh, yeah, that guy helped me out. Maybe I'll look at his podcast. So it was kind of one of those plays where I had to balance if it was a good thing to do or not, but it worked out in the end. So
Yeah, I'll leave them. It doesn't hurt. I mean, I'm not getting any. I haven't been banned.
Well, there's no way to tell who is opening and who isn't, right?
Right. Well, I could go back. I could see when they signed up, and I could kind of just start kicking people out or maybe I'll do something where I'll say, hey, if you're on my subscription list and you want to stay on, do something. But you know what? That's stupid. It doesn't matter. It's 200 email addresses. It's not even enough to hit a spam threshold.
It's stat syndrome. All of us podcasters have it. Anything that offers stats, we have to love them and look at them. And it's MailChimp. It's like a mailing list stat. Like no one else would even bat an eye. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm checking those every single Saturday at noon. My newsletter goes out at 8 in the morning. Like, okay, by noon, how many views am I getting? How many?
You send that out once a week?
Yeah, I do. So I have mine. MailChimp can update from an RSS feed. So I go in each week and I add a little custom box, and then it pulls in the latest episode and it sends it out each week. And
I
don't know if that's too much. I haven't had too many. I have had maybe 1 or 2 unsubscribes since I've started the thing, and a decent amount of opens. So I've kept it at a week. I thought, if people start massively leaving or emailing angry emails to me, I would switch it. But yeah, it's been all right.
See, I don't put any of the podcast stuff. It's all kind of what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
So I send that once a month, and that's kind of how I run my newsletter. So
I have 2 people who I know don't subscribe, and they wait for that email, and they click on the link to YouTube and watch the video. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if you'd like me to prompt you to do that, let me know. I don't know if I do that anyways. It's just the current mailing list is I told them 1 time a month, and it won't, I won't spam you. It's kind of the deal. And it's a little personal look. Not everybody's on social media. And that's kind of the feedback I got is like, hey, I'm not on social media, and so I don't follow you on Twitter. We don't do Facebook.
That was the exact feedback I got. Was I'm not on social media. I don't see when you post. And I said, well, you can subscribe to it in a podcast player. And yeah, but I like to watch it on YouTube, and YouTube subscriptions is awful. It doesn't alert me when something new's there. So that's when it started, and it hasn't changed. So
no, good to know. And I always like that kind of feedback from you guys. So if you're listening, and if you're listening right now and you got some feedback for me, send me an email. Jim@theaverageguy.tv. Good to hear back from you. Like, hey, I'd like to hear more about this, or I'd really like to hear less about that. I can't do everything you say. Not everything's practical, but I always like your feedback. And a lot of times, I've changed a lot of things. I mean, I quit most of my, I shouldn't say all, I've quit most of my automatic Twitter stuff because people complained. And I'm like, okay, I was just trying it. I didn't know. You don't know until you fail or you succeed, and I had to try something. And so I backed a lot of that way off. And just not doing as much of that anymore. I don't think it gave me that much of a lift anyways. So I retweet some RSS feeds that I really like that I actually follow myself. So I go to my own Twitter stream and click on the links of the things I've tweeted automatically on the RSS feed.
I started doing that as well. Yeah.
It's a great way. Like I follow the NASA stuff, and NASA comes up with some really cool stuff. And so if you follow @Collison, you're going to get a couple tweets from NASA that are just retweets of stuff that comes out on the RSS feed. But it's some pretty cool stuff. You're going to get a little Android stuff. I have not followed a good iPhone RSS. I don't think I need to. But so it's one of those kinds of things where I read my own Twitter feed from time to time, and I don't think it's terrible now. I think I've gotten a lot better about it.
Yeah, so. I tuned mine back because I just did an IFTT for the Mac Observer. Has just a tips feed where they have not all their news, not all of that stuff, just a tips whenever they come out with them. But I do the same thing. I go back and read through my Twitter, like, oh, I wonder what Mac Observer said. Instead of going to theirs, I just go to my Twitter. It's a lot easier. So
Christian says, "Ah, NASA, the good old days, back when he was at NASA." All right, let's get to the mixer story because I want to talk a little bit. I want to talk a little gear.
yeah.
And of course, many of you 2 weeks ago when we were podcasting, actually right before it was on a Wednesday night, right before I was supposed to do, I think a home gadget geek, Surface Geeks, whole cup of green water, not green water, it was a green cup of water, spilled all on my Alesis Multi-Mix 8. Same one you have over there, by the way.
Yeah.
And it didn't go right away, but man, I went back and listened to some of that audio, and there were some crackles in it, and you could hear it the night we did the Echo.
It was sporadic.
Podcast.
It was kind of, couldn't predict it, nothing. Yeah.
Middle of the podcast, a really loud crack, which I don't think was really bad on the audio going out, but certainly we heard it with the earbuds in. And so I moved over to and I actually bought, this will be interesting. For some of you, I actually bought an audio interface. So some of you, if you're musicians, you might have tried one of these before. So this is a PreSonus audio box, and USB driven. So it's got two XLR, and you can use an input regular 1/4-inch jack in there. There's 5 knobs associated. They do volume, and there's a mixer one in there. Although it really, the mixer is not really a mixer like you think it is. It's a switch between the inputs and the playback. What you're hearing. There's a phone and a main and a knob for each one of these inputs, and then on the back you can go direct MIDI. It's really made for musicians, but direct MIDI in, 2 outs and a phone, right? So you would think pretty good for podcasters, but there's no audio, there's nothing like on a mixer, there's no way to change your sound at all, right? It's a straight pass-through. You have to use software, and this comes with some software. This is $99, by the way, if you go to Guitar Center or Amazon or whatever like that. Again, if you're a musician, you might have one of these. You could use it in the place of a direct box. That would also work for you if you plug your guitar in. One of the cool things about these, if you are using it for instruments, is when you plug it into the PC, the software that comes with it has all kinds of digital effects. So instead of having to buy an effects box like you do with a guitar, you can run the digital effects right on your PC. And that's pretty cool. So strum it, play it, and then you can run different effects to hear what it's going to sound like after you've recorded it. There's lots of things you can do with it. What I thought I could do was use it for podcasting, and I ran it through Voicemeeter. And actually, we ran Ask the Podcast Coach last Saturday off of this thing. Now, I had the bass too high, and you have to change all those audio effects on your computer, and I have to use a virtual audio cable to make it work with Ask the Podcast Coach, and I've never had great luck with virtual audio cables working perfectly no-click free. And I could hear the click. You couldn't hear it. I could hear the click. It was popping constantly in my ears. And after an hour and a half of that, Mike, you went and stab yourself with an ice pick right through your chin. It's horrible. So didn't really work for podcasters, but I'd be interested for you musicians out there. This may be something that you've had experience with. I'd sell it to somebody for $50 if they wanted to take it off of me. I'm not going to use it at this point because. Any comments on this, Mike, before I switch to the because?
Well, my only thing was it was extremely clear. I did really when you were I think you were Skyping me or something, or we were doing something where I was listening to it, and it's very clear, and like you said, kind of that direct into the computer, but
it's a straight shot, right? There is no effects,
right.
Not like you're going through the board and you've got some kind of EQ or you've got some kind of digital effect on there or whatever.
But a lot of podcasters don't even use that. For me, I mean, tonight we were playing around with my EQ, but yeah, it might not be bad for some people who aren't as picky with that sort of stuff, and if they want to just leave it as is, straight in, might be okay. But yeah, you're right. For musicians, that's where it's at.
It's certainly, if you're going to plug a guitar in, this is where you could use it for that. And again, I'd love to hear from you on that. This has been my first experience into this kind of USB interface. So I'm sure we've got a few musicians out there. Call me, 402-478-8450. I'd love to hear how you're using that. We'll get it recorded. We'll throw that in there because it's an interesting piece of gear. And again, if you want to pick it up half price, I'll give it to a listener for $50.
Could also be a really expensive way to get your mix minus into your computer as well.
No, absolutely.
Because I mean, I have a cheap version. I have the $30 Behringer. I think it's a 220, and it's just a USB. It's got RCA connectors on it, and that's how I get my mix minus back into my computer. Because obviously the main USB coming off that mixer is going to be your main mix, and then you've got to somehow to get that mix minus in there. So.
Yeah, you would create a loop with it.
Yep,
I what you would do. Yeah, you could absolutely do that, and it would be unprocessed at that point. And I would hope it was gonna give a little gain lift to the ATR 2100s. They are gain hungry.
It doesn't. It does not.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
No, I had to
because
have that
mine
thing
does.
really
Mine
up.
boosts up anything. That Behringer device almost too much. Almost adds in a little bit of noise when it does it. Not too bad. Not too bad where it's anything that I need to change out. But if I was a very picky podcaster or musician, it might be a little too much for me. Might boost it. But
yeah. Well, I think if you go back and listen to the last 2 episodes and you listen to this one, I think you'll find a lot less bass in my voice over the last because we moved over, so I have the Mackie. I just picked up. I'm having trouble here. It's because I'm out of beer. I'm having trouble talking. There's a correlation between the amount of mistakes I make and the amount of beer that's left in my glass.
Very true. Very true.
So I picked up the Mackie Pro FX8. It's an 8-channel mixer. Really kind of an industry standard mixer in a lot of ways. 170, so not terribly expensive when we think about what mixers can do. It's got 4 XLRs, and the other 4 are input. And it's got a couple. I think it's got a couple aux. I haven't even looked at those yet. So I just got it. I got it yesterday. I got it an hour before Home Server Show. I had it set up in 20 minutes. Boom, I was in. It was so nice to kind of plug in USB, route the mic. I ran a longer cable so I could get it over here. You can see it in the camera right here. And plugged that in. I plugged the monitors in. I plugged my earbuds in. I adjusted the audio, turned the bass way down, turned the treble way up because I already talk a little low anyways. So I loving it. Mike Howard, that's what he uses. And although I think he might have the 12 version, I'm not sure. But Mackie, very durable. I still like that Alesis Multimix 8. You're going to get it's $50 less for the same thing, pretty much.
Well, unless you have, I mean, how many aux ends do you have? Probably just one.
Yeah, I'd have to look real quick. I don't want a lot of dead air on there while I'm looking, but I'll have to go back and take a peek. I'm not a big fan of mix minus, so
right.
That's why I run a broadcast server, so I can play those things, and you can hear them, and I can hear them, and so I cheat the mix minus god. So I don't really care.
Right. The only reason, and I don't like using it either, but I have to send different stuff to the radio station sometimes. Like I'll be on the call with the person and send them something different, so that's the only reason I've set it up. But
yeah, it looks like one mono send.
Okay. Yeah, same here.
So pretty cool. One of the things I did different, and I'm not a big fan of buying insurance, but I bought apparently because I spilled drinks now on 2 of my mixers, right? It's like maybe I ought to buy the insurance. So, I went with the Square Trade 2-year musical instrument protection from Amazon. It was $13. And, I'm like, again, normally I say no to this, and no deductible, file a claim, you break it, they replace it type deal. And so I'm going to give that a try. I mean, I haven't held on to a mixer for longer than 2 years yet for various reasons. And so for me, this is the one thing I was like, and the receipt will be kept online. It'll be in my orders. Because that's the other thing. You buy at a Guitar Center, they give you a receipt, and Best Buy was notorious for they'd give you this folder and put all your receipts in it, and they're like, okay, you have to find this in 2.5 years, or you never keep that stuff, right?
Well, the one thing I found too was, I don't know, you definitely should check through your credit card all the different perks. So I noticed that with American Express, they have an extra warranty on any electronics you buy with your American Express. So checking your credit card benefits, you might have it and not even realize it. Like you might have just had to purchase it with that card and had that extra protection. And so something that I found out just today actually from a coworker, and I had checked into mine, and sure enough, I have the same thing that I never knew about. So.
Yeah, no, it's oftentimes your credit card has that. Ken says in chat he didn't notice any difference. Google Plus is kind of doing some things here too that's kind of evening it out. But I could really notice the difference between the last 2 podcasts and the podcast before that. Now, some of that is because I had the settings up too high. It's not the piece of equipment's fault, because this just is a straight pass-through.
Right.
It was the voice meter that I was using where I had the bass too high. And one is the playback using voice meter into my own ears was not accurate, so I couldn't tell. That was maddening, right? I couldn't tell what my own voice was sounding like. And so that's just another reason why I won't use it, right, from that standpoint. You, the listener, may not notice that much of a difference. I heard it, but I listen to my stuff all the time, and I'm pretty little crazy. You know, I listen to that stuff. I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound exactly like I want it to. So
how are the preamps on that Mackie? Do you have to turn the gain up as high as you did on the?
I do. They're not great.
No,
they're not great.
Same as the.
Yeah, same as the Alesis.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say if I'm going to do one thing different, and I still might do this, I'm going to get a DBX 166, which has dynamite preamps in it.
Yeah.
Run it through the 166 first, up through the board and out. Now that's a gigantic, and those are $150. That's a gigantic overkill for the podcaster. Just enormous, right? I might have better luck just getting a Heil PR40, which I would not have to push the gain so hard. These 2100s, you just got to push the gain.
Now, usually, I mean, wouldn't you put that behind your mixer? Like you go into mixer and then into the compressor and back?
I guess.
I guess you could do either. You could do either. If voice is the only one coming in, that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
I think that would need to be knocked down a little bit.
Right. Mike Howard has it set up. What I'd do is I'd order it and then I'd call him and say, all right, how did you? Because he's done a boatload of testing on this. And I would just say, all right, Mike, how did you set this up? Teach me. And
so he has that 166?
He does, yeah.
Okay.
And he uses the gate in it with the fan in the background. Now I have in Tony just recently. We talked about home gadgets. We talked recently on our Facebook page, so facebook.com/groups/theaverageguy.tv. We talked about these tower fans. And, you know, you can, if you head out to Amazon, Tony Rayner bought an oscillating tower fan that's got these super quiet fans inside them. You know, you ever bought those big box fans? My son has one in his room. I can hear it down here. You know, I mean, it is pushing some air. Well, right now I've got my fan running right on the other side of the desk here. It gets a little warm down here in the summer, and it's keeping air moving. You can't hear it. We did that test the other night. I'm like, I'm going to go turn this on. Remember I think you were there when we did that. Man, some of these newer oscillating fans are super quiet. So
they are, yeah.
They're not cheap, $50 to $100 in there. You know, you're not going to get out the store for $14.99 and a cheap box fan that's sounds like a jet engine taking off.
I'm looking for that compressor because I have a very bad habit, and you probably noticed this being the editor of this pod, is when I get excited about something, I come up to the mic and I talk loud. And then when I'm not as sure, I come off and I talk. But when I talk loud, sometimes I'll peak my meter, and then also for my dog barking. Sometimes I'm like, a compressor would be perfect to get out my dog bark.
Take some editing out. In the gate in there, the gate would help, like with the bottom end stuff.
Right.
So, you know, I struggle with it. I almost bought one, but it was like, it's a little bit of an overkill for what we do here from the podcasting. Now, if I did it at work, I would add one for sure. So actually have that built into the work budget.
Well, and it's different when you run your audio through Google Hangouts. You know, because Google Hangouts is going to already do a lot of wonky stuff. Honestly, my biggest thought in the past week has been, how do I route my audio around Google Hangouts? And what I decided to do was, since I have the same co-host every week and I don't usually have another guest, is we're going to do a double ender. So I'm just going to have him record on his end, me record on my end, and then we're just going to bring them together for the actual podcast recording. So. And
I think you can do that if it's just one-on-one. But add a guest, you can't ask your guest to record.
Not at all. And then lining that stuff up would be a bear too. So when you only have two people, it's not as bad. You do one clap at the beginning, and you've got the two spikes, and you're good.
So Ken asks, Alesis versus Mackie, water-free, the Alesis being water-free. Sound different? I don't think so. Not too different, no. I like the Mackie. I think the Mackie's a little more durable. You're paying for a better. Mackie's done some tests with Yamaha, Alesis itself, and there's one other one in there. And Mackie far and above. If you're carrying this around and doing live shows, Mackie's the brand to go with. They are the most durable. Alesis, I think, gives you the best sound for the best price, and it's not like I'm moving it. Right, it sits here and collects dust. I mean, I use it absolutely, but so if you're going to go budget, it's going to sit on your desk. I would go Alesis 9 times out of 10. If you're going to haul it around and DJ and do gigs, I'm going to go Mackie 9 times out of 10.
Well, and even if you're going with the smaller version, the 4 version, so the Alesis Multimix 4 and Mackie makes a 4 version too. There's a lot of things on the Mackie, like there's no power switch on the 4 version of the Mackie, which there is on the Alesis. So there's give and take, but the Mackie is going to be way more durable for travel, which is funny. We use all of our cheap mixers to travel with, which doesn't make much sense because they're not as durable anyway. But
that's so dumb. You're like, no, I'm not going to take my expensive mixer on the road. It's
right
because it's supposed to go on the road.
Right. But I'm still going to haul around that little Multimix 4.
I know. I love that thing. That Alesis Multimix 4. That would be, Mike, if anybody was thinking about podcasting or just get better sound at home, that Multimix 4, and you'll bring it up here, that's the one to go with. $79 full price. So you can get it for $69 in a lot of cases. Yeah. Hold on. Let me
2
switch
XLR. You got 2
it
XLR and you got an extra line in. Volume preamps actually not too bad. I actually didn't have to turn the gain up as much on this one as I did with my Multimix 8. You got a power switch on the back. Goes out to USB, which is nice, and also has the 2 main 1/4 inch. So.
Yeah. People have heard me say this before. If you're a tech professional and you're on the phone a lot, you got to get in you're doing it off your cell phone or you got a crappy phone at home, you really ought to think about switching over to some kind of rig where you can get some earbuds or some headphones and a microphone. I have real trouble now talking on a phone that sounds bad because I get great sound this way. So it's just not podcasters, I guess what I'm saying, thinking about this. For the average guy, if you're doing a lot of phone work, man, this is a great setup for that kind of stuff. I mean, it's and there's these mics are $60, the arms are $15. And those mixers are $75. Let's say that's probably a good price for the Multimix 4. So not a bad way to look at it. So all right, well, hey, we got through it.
Yeah, get 2 podcasters together, you're never going to be short on time. This could probably run till about midnight if we wanted it to.
I called Mike yesterday. I'm like, well, we lost our guest, and I need to move it an hour back. Is that going to be a problem? He's like, no problems.
Nope. We'll be fine.
We'll find it, and I never worry about it. It's one of those kinds of things that, again, we love having this conversation. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. Kevin, good to see you. Come out here a little bit late. Kevin said that MasterCard automatically adds a year to the end of his warranties. We were talking about that. Again, check your credit card. And then Brian had said, get one of those bladeless fans. That's not a bad. You've seen those.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I see them at Bed Bath & Beyond all the time.
Yeah, throw that. I mean, especially as I'm sitting at the desk here, I get a little warm as I sit here all the time. And blowing air right up against me underneath the desk, very, very, just kind of helps keep everything cool. And so the oscillating fans work really nice. Those bladeless ones would for this kind of application. So again, this works well when you join us live and when you join us there in chat. And so thanks for coming out. We'll do a little bit of post show. It is kind of late, but we'll do a little quick post show. I've got Mike. I'll share something with you. I'd love to share with the community a little bit that's out there. These guys that follow me every week. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. We are live every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv. Tonight we moved it, but every other night, almost, we do it here at that time. So join us as live. Don't forget to join us on Saturday mornings. Ask the podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Although I won't be there this week, I have graduations on Saturday, but every other Saturday out there, Dave Jackson and I talk about podcasting. And so if you'd like to join us out there, you can call in as well. 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern, out at askthepodcastcoach.com. Again, we talked about the newsletter. If you haven't signed up yet, averageguy.tv/newsletter. We'll get you there as well. Thanks for Amazon was big this month. Appreciate that, and it goes into the Tech Scholarship Fund. Again, if you want to test something, I'll buy it for you, send it to you. And if you write up a review, you can keep it. And a good way of getting good, fair, honest reviews. By the way, I'll have some reviews coming out. I've been talking about the Tech Armor stuff that I got, right? Our friends over at Tech Armor. I shouldn't say friends, but our friends at Tech. Hold on here.
They're friends now. They said.
Well, that's how they said it. Our friends at Tech Armor. Well, that's just a nice way of saying it.
Yeah, right.
They sent me a case. They sent me an iPhone case for the 6, and it's just super slick, and I didn't like it. Now that's just my preference, and so I sent them a note, and I was like, Hey, Larry, I'm going to say it's a good case. Goes on easy. It's sturdy. Man, this thing's going to come flying out of my hands. That's me.
Yeah.
Do you want me to say that before I go on there? Are you sure you want me to say that? I'm using the Tech 21. I got this at Best Buy. You can see actually, this is that metal plate that we get for those, the Whiz, what do we call those things? Whiz Gear? The Whiz Gear magnetic holders? Yeah, that's what that is in the back there.
So I'm seeing mine, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they make a round one too for that. And anyways, I like this. It's grippy. So I've liked that. That was actually one I got a good price on at Best Buy.
Mine's about the same. It's kind of like that material. You can kind of almost tell. It's kind of material. It's like not super slick, but not super grippy either.
Yep.
So
you throw it on something and it would hold for. I mean, it wouldn't like stick there, but it wouldn't move.
Oh, see, no, mine wouldn't.
Okay.
Mine's like a little slicker than that. So
yeah.
I had the problem when they're a little grippier, they get stuck in my pocket, which isn't a problem now because when I go to work, I wear it on a belt clip, but I can't be caught with one of those at school. So. But at work, I use the belt.
Yeah, Ken says 9 p.m. start every Thursday. No, 8 p.m. starts on Thursdays. This is just tonight. I just had to move it tonight. So, and then, this is another Best Buy special here, this invisible shield. If you go to Best Buy, this is what they sell. I cracked it. I actually cracked it.
Did you really?
I did, yeah. I'd show it in the camera, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it. My son was in the car, Phil, my oldest son, and he said, "Did you crack your phone?" And I'm like, "What?" And I look over there, and there's a piece on the phone right up here. There's a little divot in the glass, and let's see if I can. Oh, yep, there. See that little?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's actually on the protective screen. So
had you have not had that, who knows? You might have actually cracked your screen.
I probably would have cracked the screen on the iPhone.
Maybe.
But so InvisiShield has a lifetime warranty. So I'm going to send him a little note. But in the meantime, our friends at Tech Armor sent me another one. So I'm going to try their ballistic. They call this ballistic glass. And it's another one of those HD ballistic glass. It's another one of those things you throw on there. Helps protect the phone. Plus, it's supposed to be smooth. So I'm going to give that a try. So it was actually perfect timing because I'm like, ooh, I broke it. This weekend, I'm going to rip one off and try the other. And then I'm going to write these up as well. So some stuff from Tech Armor, and we'll be giving that a try. And again, you got my honest opinion. That thing would come flying out of my hand with that case. And if you want to take advantage of the Tech Scholarship Fund and try some of those things out too, send them to you, and you get to keep them. And then we can give an honest review at them as well. Our friend over at I want you to keep looking at Silicon Prairie News. So Ryan out there at Silicon Prairie, they're really trying to build that as a Midwest tech kind of hub. So if you haven't checked it out, head over to Silicon Prairie News or just put SPN News in Google. I think that'll get you there as well. And like I said, we are out here every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. We'll do a little bit of post-show, and you only get the post-show if you hang out for the live show. And so join us with that. With that, we'll say good night, everybody. So, Mike, interesting conversation. I'll have this in public here. I kind of shared it with you, but interesting podcasting discussion in the sense of what do you do when your co-host dies, right? I mean, I had the most incredible situation this week, and I'll just share this with my live guys because you guys know me really well. So so for a year and a half now, I have done a bi-weekly podcast for Gallup called Theme Thursday. Kurt Liesfeld was my host with that. Good friend that I've gotten to know over the last year and a half. And Kurt passed away on Saturday. Had a massive heart attack, which is why we need to be in shape, gentlemen. You need to lose weight and get in shape, and I'm serious about this. This is why I run my butt off all the time, is because I don't, anyway, 63, massive heart attack while he was out mowing the lawn, and passed away. They couldn't revive him, and I lost my co-host to the show, where it's a 34-part series. There's 34 themes that we have in that, and by the way, it's the first time I've talked about this, so on actually live. I'm hoping I'm going to make it all the way through this, but what do you do? It's like, holy crap, you never expect to lose a co-host, right? I mean, that's just bizarre.
Well, especially in the manner it happened. I mean, losing a co-host from the person deciding not to do it anymore or anything like that, but from a sudden death is just a completely different story. Yeah, when you told me that, I don't know how I would have reacted to that.
Yeah, it's just
And
been it's
the hard part's going to be doing that first podcast, getting back to it. So continuing that show without him, that's going to, I think, be the hardest
yeah
part.
yeah. I'll write about this a little bit in the newsletter, but it's been the hardest thing. I've had the hardest week ever at work. I've never had anybody this close to me die at work, pass away. Um, and yeah, it's just been crazy to have. We have 9 more of these shows to do, and so I met with the leadership team today. We really haven't been talking publicly about it too much. This is a whole different venue than the coaches. None of these guys listening tonight are in our coaching community, so I don't have to worry about it. But they were devastated. He was a giant in our community and just the greatest guy. Many people hurt. Going to be a gigantic funeral, which is tomorrow. And the guy was just a giant. He was just a great guy, most humble guy, would really find the best in you. I mean, just awesome. We lost him way too early. So we've been talking. I think we're going to have the team. He had a team around him, and that team is going to fill in. Each one is going to fill in one of those slots, and we'll do a little bit of tribute to him in the process. We have a podcast. His last podcast, which I recorded Thursday, he died Saturday, comes out on Tuesday. And we've added a little memorial slide to it, but it's just Mike. I'll be honest with you, the most surreal experience. Like you're not ready for that kind of stuff. You're like, what do you do?
Yeah.
You don't even think
you kind of sit there in shock. I mean, just like kind of like you don't know what to say, you don't know what to do. You almost don't believe it until you show up that next day, and that person that was that close to you honestly isn't there.
Yeah, and I didn't work with Kurt on a daily basis, so he's not a part. At work, he's not a part of my. While I work with him, he's not like part of my work life. So the intern started on Monday, and it's like, okay, here we go. This is a big day. I mean, I work all year for Monday because we've got 15 college interns coming, 10 high school interns coming, 3 weeks behind that. It's a big summer deal, and we work all year for that. So I needed to pull that off flawlessly. But then, and I haven't been back on the mic at work yet. I haven't gone back into the studio since I signed off Friday, and got the news Saturday night, and it's going to be tough going back in. Maybe not the first call to coach. That's the coaching show we do. Those I'll have to do one of those Monday night in India, late Monday night in India. But it'll be interesting. We're not going to do them again until July, so I've got some time to kind of recover. It'll be good to get to the funeral tomorrow. I'm celebrate his life, and let me tell you a cool story though about it real quick. So are you good on time?
Yeah, I got a guest here, so I might in 20 minutes.
Let me tell this story, and then we'll wrap it up.
Go for it. Yeah.
It's a good story because it's a good tech story. So 18 months ago, he comes to me. I didn't even know him that well, not as well as I know him now. So he comes to me and says, "Hey, I've lost all my pictures on my hard drive." Right? He's like, I heard you're pretty good at, you're pretty good at that stuff. And I said, yeah. I said, well, bring your hard drive in, and let me take a peek at it, and chances are I can kind of recover it. And so brought it home. I threw it in the dock. I've got one of those hard drive docks that I can just attach to my computer, a $30 dock. I keep it on hand just for that kind of stuff. I call Christian, and I'm like, hey, what should I? And I can never remember the name of the software. If Christian's still out there, helps you kind of recover. Yeah, he's still out there. Drop that in there, Christian. You know what I'm talking about. I want to say Sunia, something like that, but that's not it. And oftentimes it'll go and it's not SpinRite. It's the free version, and oftentimes it'll get stuff for you. And so, and I talked to a few of you in the community about that as well. And so, again, this was like a year and some change. So regardless, we were able to get the pictures back, and so I loaded those down. In fact, I might even have them somewhere. Like they might be on my Drobo still. But because that's right, I move out. When I recover that stuff, I move it to my Drobo just so I have it. I give it back to the person, and I make sure that they've actually backed it up before I delete it. I'm like, okay, did you get it backed up somewhere? So I give it back to Kurt. He was super nice and gave me like a $100 gift card to Starbucks, and was super appreciative and said, dude, there were thousands of pictures we never would have gotten back. So I didn't think anything of it. So passes on Saturday. I get an email from his wife, Roseanne, on Tuesday, and she says, "Hey, about a year ago or so, Kurt lost some pictures, and somebody at Gallup helped him recover that. Do you know who that was?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that was me." Yeah. And she's like, "You have no idea how important that was because those are all the pictures we're using for the funeral." I was like, "Oh my God." You know, dude, talk about using your tech talent, right, to make a difference in people's lives. I mean, it's crazy. I was like, oh my, you when you're helping somebody with this, with the tech stuff, you don't know the impact you're going to have by getting those pictures back. And you don't.
Well, and neither did he, honestly, at the point. I mean, yes, it was really important to him that he had these photos, but I mean, look at it. How many months later, it's even made a bigger impact than anyone had ever thought.
Yeah, Christian
That's the
says,
cool part about it.
yeah, no, right on, right on. It's amazing. I mean, I'm emotional about it now. You think it's like, wow, that was pretty cool. That came full circle. Christians, they're telling me Rakuva is the
that's what I was going to ask.
is the right name. Not only did he put it in chat, he also sent it to me in Skype. I was getting to it. I was telling the story. Just relax, guys, relax. Rakuva is the software. Worked great. And so it was one of those kinds of things. And Mike, I know you've done this, and I've done it too. You help people with their tech stuff, and you just don't know what, you get their pictures back or get. My daughter has, Sarah posted this into the Facebook group. My daughter has voicemails from her friend who passed away last March. So it's been a year and some change. Real tragic type thing, and she does not want. She's keeping that phone because she doesn't want to lose those voicemails. And we've been talking about how to get those voicemails off. They did not come in the backup, and so I think I'm just going to play them right into the microphone, and we're going to record them on Audacity, and we'll back them up that way, or get a cable or something to do it. But it's those kinds of things. It's when you use your tech skill for those kinds of things, and you don't know. Not everything's going to be that way. But when you use your superpowers for those kinds of things, and it changes people's lives, that's awesome. I mean, that's what I live for when I do tech stuff. And so just kind of a cool story. It was tragedy this week, but I want to encourage you guys. Maybe I will publish this part. I just want to encourage you guys. I'll tag it onto the internet show. I want to encourage you guys that are listening. Don't ever take what you do with your tech, because you're your family tech guy. Don't ever take that for granted. Like when your friends come to you and go, "Can you help me?" Don't roll your eyes. Okay, move. Say, you know what? Just say, "Yeah, I can help you," and because you never know what kind of impact that's going to have, and how that's going to work out. So, I think a cool story, a good end. Tomorrow's going to be a tough day for me. It's going to be a tough day followed by a great day as my kids graduate. As we celebrate this funeral on Friday, and then we do graduations on Saturday. But I just appreciate you guys listening out there and going through this kind of stuff with me. And I just think about, I've got 2 interns in Omaha because of the podcast. I got a great resource in Washington, D.C. named Christian Johnson, who does all this stuff for us here on the network. And it's all because we do this tech stuff. So pretty cool.
Brings us all together.
No, very cool. Well, hey, my mom's here too, although she's probably in bed. So if you're out there, you hang tight for 1 sec. If you're out there listening live, we want to say thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate you letting me kind of just babble on about that. It was just a true life story that is all because of the tech that we do, and so I appreciate you guys letting me tell that story here in the post show. We'll be back next Thursday, and I think, who did I say is up on Thursday? Is that?
That's Clamor.
It's Clamor next week. So looking forward to that as well. With that, guys, we'll say goodnight.